Welcome back to Withdraw Consent. I'm Jack. Today we want to do a comparison of the bombing in Gaza in the most recent conflict, compare it to other military conflicts, and see if it's as drastic as they say it is, or if it's been blown out of proportion. So basically, if you look at the first reference below, and this is from November 7th, 2024, we're going to count the tonnage of bombs dropped on the Gaza Strip at 85,000 tons. That's just the number we're going to use. And we're just going to go in every war that we can find tonnage. So first I want to compare that to the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So there's not, they don't have exact numbers, so I took the high end numbers. So Hiroshima's 15 to 16,000 tons. We're going to call it 16,000 ton. It's as if it was that much explosives. And then Nagasaki was 21,000 tons. So if you add them both together, that's 37,000 tons. And so obviously it's over double that amount. So two little boys and two of the big ones. I mean, that just is what it is. Okay, so now let's go to an interesting one that I didn't know about, okay, before I started researching this. And I'm going to take you over here to this YouTube video, and I'm just going to play it in the background while we talk. But basically, this is bombing missions over Laos from 1965 to 1973. And each dot on the map represents one of those bombing runs. And then basically you can see the time clicking here. So it starts in 65. The green are big bombs dropped, and then the red are cluster munitions, you know. And you can see right here we're up to over 2 million already. And we're only in 1967. So 2.5 million tons were dropped by the US on Laos, compared to 85,000 tons in Gaza. But Laos is a much bigger area. So in the next article, we're going to take Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, and we're going to compare them to Gaza in area and per capita for the tonnage and stuff like this. And this continues. This is the second reference below. It's nearly over, but you could just tell everything's getting bombed. We'll say. So let's go to that article now. Back out of this. Okay. This will be the third reference below. That's with SASA. Israel's historic devastation of Gaza. And it's just going to cover it from tons of different angles. And I think it's going to be very interesting. After this, we're going to go into stuff like compare it to Dresden, stuff like that. We're going to do area and then the tonnage of bombs. So this is done at 200 days into the conflict. So this is not fully representative of where we're at right now. And they're trying to debunk the narrative floating around on the internet that in 200 days, Israel has dropped more bombs on Gaza than dropped during the entirety of World War II. And so the narrative likely stems from an analysis that shows that the tonnage of bombs dropped on Gaza has already surpassed that dropped on London, Hamburg, and Dresden combined, three of the most heavily bombed cities during World War II. That fact is true. However, then they twist the claim Israel has dropped more bombs on Gaza than the entirety of World War II. This claim is undeniably false and also ludicrous in my opinion. Okay. That is unavoidable that they are doing it at a devastating rate. Okay, and so in the Vietnam War, U.S. dropped over 7.5 million tons of bombs on Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. We saw a third of that being dropped on Laos. So, okay, and then we're just going to start looking at different things. Total bombs dropped. Okay, these graphs are great. This is Gaza over here. So they're using 75,000 tons, which is pretty close to the 85,000 tons. You know, it's not going to wildly throw off these. And then here's Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos, 7.66 million. Here's European theater and Pacific theater of World War II. So European was 1.61 million, obviously not even close. Not even close to the Pacific theater of 537,000 tons over here. Okay, bombs per day. This is 362 tons a day on average. 2.3 thousand, 1.5 thousand, 393. It's actually near this. It's very close to the smaller theater of the World War II. And then let's see. Okay, let's just do chart. Let's just skip down the charts. Okay, this one's interesting. Okay, this is the area Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos, and the big green circle. And then this little dot over here is Gaza, if you were to compare them to each other. 360 square kilometers over here. We're going to use that a lot later to compare to like Dresden and other stuff. And 749,000 approximately square kilometers over here. So it's 2,081 times. Now this gets really interesting. You ready for this? In comparison, here's Jupiter to Earth's moon is just 1624 times larger, Jupiter is, than the moon. Over here, 2,081. So the difference is greater between those two and the moon and Jupiter. I thought that was a pretty clever way of realizing it. Now, here's where the table flips on its head. Israel has already bombed Gaza more extensively than the U.S. bombed Vietnam. Okay. Per square kilometer. So because of this huge difference in the square kilometers, because Gaza is so tiny, it's the equivalent per square kilometer that Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos got 10 tons per square kilometer. Over here, they're at 208 tons, almost 21 times more per square kilometer. Okay. Oh, interesting. And they've done that in 3,100 fewer days. Wow, that's wild. Okay. Bombs per day adjusted for area. Okay. So this is per day, per square kilometer. So now they're adding in a time reference. And so this is the equivalent of 1 ton per day per square kilometer. Because you remember they were getting, up here they were bombing 362 tons a day, and there's 365 square kilometers in Gaza. So that math doesn't even add up. It adds up to more than 208 tons. Okay, but we'll just leave it like that. So this is too low, if anything. Oh, no. This is the number I'm looking for. 1 ton. Yeah, okay, that's equivalent. Good. And over here, it's 0.003 tons per day per square kilometer. This is the kind of war over here where you can live your whole life in a rural village and you hear some bombs far away, but it doesn't involve you. This is a war that cannot happen at all. You cannot avoid it. Okay, so conclusion. We're still concluding, though, because we got the robustness check, okay? So here's the tonnage dropped on Gaza daily versus the Vietnam War per 100,000 people. Now we're doing the per capita. And in Gaza, because this is so rural, that's what it says up here. Because it's so rural and this is so heavily populated, which is one thing people say, but like, is this really true? Yes, it's true. 17.3 tons per 100,000 people per day. I laughed a little bit. That's insane. 5.2 tons per 100,000 people per day. So now we're all done with that article, and I need to get out of this so that I can give you some more stats, okay? Let me make this a little bigger. Okay, so let's compare it to some other stuff. So London was mentioned in the previous one that it had surpassed that, yes. So London, during World War II, the Blitz, or the Battle of Britain, London was bombed with 12,000 tons of bombs compared to 85,000 tons in Gaza. And then London has 1,572 square kilometers of land compared to 365 square kilometers of land. And 40,000 civilians died in those bombings. And so basically Gaza got 7 times the tons of bombs on about a quarter of the size of land, if you compare it to London. Okay. Dresden was only 4,000 tons of bombs were dropped, but they were incendiaries and extremely effective over 2 nights. And they have 328 square kilometers, so they're a little bit smaller than Gaza. Officially, 25,000 civilians died, but that's an absolute joke. So if you want to compare Gaza to Dresden, Gaza has taken 21 times the tons of bombs on a similar size, slightly larger than Dresden. In Berlin getting bombed, now Berlin was bombed 68,500 tons, which is over 5 times the tonnage of bombs that Germany dropped on London. Because, of course, they did this for longer. And so Berlin has 891 square kilometers. And then basically it says 20,000 to 50,000 civilians are dead. I don't know which one of those is more accurate. And then basically Berlin got 80% as many tons as Gaza on a nearly 2.5 size at the time area. So it wasn't bad. Okay. So it's still terrible. 68,500 tons is a ton. So in the Gulf War, I thought this was interesting to compare it to a more contemporary war. Gulf War 1991. So The Allies dropped, the Allies, whatever you call that, the grouping of terrible countries that are going to war to take somebody's sovereign power away from them. 140,000 tons of bombs were dropped. 100 to 200,000 civilians died. And this is not including the famine. The famine, many more than that died, of course. And 20,000 to 35,000 Iraqi soldiers. I didn't do the landmass because it's so disproportionate to compare it to Gaza. Now, I really wanted to see the Iraq war, and from 2003, I also wanted to see the Russo-Ukrainian war, but I couldn't get information on those about the exact tonnage. Like, you check the Russo-Ukrainian war going on now, and it'll tell you 29,000 bombs, or I'll try to talk about Russia's glide bombs. I couldn't get the exact information. I only have a certain amount of time to research. But I thought this was interesting to see if the claims of, you got the anti-genocide people, or you can call them like pro-Palestinian or pro-Hamas, whatever your leaning is, and they're saying that it's such a large amount of people in such a small area. That's why it's so catastrophic what's being done to them. And I wanted to kind of fact check that and see if the facts hold up when you look at these bombings in Gaza over a wide historical range of bombings in different conflicts. And to me, it totally looks like it's not being pumped up. It is wildly terrible what they've done. You can see from the aerial photos. I might put a couple in right now. I might not. And it's terrible what happened to them, what is happening to them right now, and what Christian Zionists in the United States are supporting just absolutely disgusts me when I see one of them. Anyways, that's what I got for you. I hope this was informative for you, and I'll see you next time.